welcome to episode 25 of our Team Lotus F1 Manager series as we have reached the end of 2024. And that's really what this episode's about. So it's going to be a bit of a shorter episode. We're not doing a race in this episode, but a little bit of a review of 2024, looking at how we did, looking at our drivers. But we'll also go into the database editor and have a look at other teams to look at the teammate battles, head-to-heads, and see how they fared as well. So as I say, a little bit of a shorter episode, a little bit different, just having a bit of a review of 2024. If you do like the content, of course, please do subscribe. If you like this episode, do like the video, really helps me out, and get involved down below in the comments. But let's head towards finishing this season, and then we shall do a review of the 2024 season. So just a recap of the standings, it was Ferrari that won the Constructors' Championships, 50 points over Red Bull in second. McLaren round out the top three, and we finish in 7th with 14 points. The season objective was 9th, so we clearly have achieved that, which is great to see. So hopefully we're not going to be getting the sack at the end of this season. A Drivers' Championship, it was Max Verstappen that won the championship. Charles Leclerc jumped into second place in the last race of the season in Abu Dhabi because Carlos Sainz retired. Having said that, Charles was a couple of places ahead of him before that retirement, so I think he would have done that naturally anyway. So Charles Leclerc who finished in second, Carlos Sainz third, and then Sergio Perez did the same over Lando Norris to gain 3 points on him, which was enough for 1 point difference for Perez to finish fourth. Lando Norris finishes fifth in the 2024 Drivers' Championship. His teammate Oscar Piastri sixth, George Russell seventh, Yuki Tsunoda eighth, and then Fernando Alonso in the last race pips Lewis Hamilton into ninth. Lewis Hamilton rounds out the top 10. And then it is Daniel Ricciardo, strong finish to the season, and he finishes 12th in the Drivers' Championship. Mick did get a point, and he finished 17th. DHL, fastest pit stop. It was Red Bull that won that one. We finished 10th, clearly ahead of Haas, but quite a bit. Well, we were close to Kick Sauber and Williams, but quite a bit off these. So a bit of work to do for our pit stops. Now, F2, it was Campos Racing that have won the Constructors' Championship over there in F2, and it is Isaac Hadjar that won the championship. He was our first choice, Isaac Hadjar. That's who we wanted to replace Mick Schumacher. We are unable to do it because Red Bull have signed him back up as an affiliate and his buyout was too much. So that's a shame that we missed out, but pretty dominant actually in that F2 championship. Zane Maloney in second, Pepe Marti in third over there in F2. And in F3, it's MP Motorsport winning the Constructors, and it's Dino Beganovic who has won the Drivers' Championship in Formula 3. So that's a bit of a recap of the championships. Sad news. Sad news. Daniel Ricciardo's declining pretty much because of his age, I would say. That's why he's declining. So, yeah, that's not great to see at the end of the season, is it? But we will probably replace Daniel Ricciardo for 2026. So he is in the car next year. I think he's deserved that. That is his contract anyway. We didn't have to renew his contract. He was on a 2-year deal. It's unlikely that we'll renew it for 2026 just because of his age and because of this. He's likely to be on the decline now. So we've got James Vowles in our inbox. Hello, Callie. I wanted to offer my congratulations. We put up a good fight, but your team fought just a little harder or got just a little more lucky. Oh, come on, James. Leave off it. Leave off it with that. We'll do our best to stop you next season. Don't worry. Enjoy the end of the year, and I'll see you on track soon. Thanks, James. So, yeah, it was Williams who was closest to us in the Constructors. I mean, to be fair, 10 points when you're down here is quite a large margin, but they were ahead of us for most of the season. I think we probably overtook them with our result. Was it in Brazil? About 4 or 5 races to go. It was between sort of Brazil and the last 4 or 5 races that we overtook them. So, yeah, thanks for the message, James. Oh, dear. So Daniel Ricciardo has taken quite a big hit. He's lost 1 on cornering, 2 on control, 1 on smoothness, 1 on adaptability, 1 on overtaking, 2 on defending, 2 on reactions and 2 on accuracy. So that's quite the decline for Daniel Ricciardo there. As I say, this is likely to be his last season with us in 2025 anyway, so hopefully he doesn't decline any further throughout the year. Still 81 overall. As we wrap up 2024, I thought it was worth looking at the 2025 technical regulation changes, which is going to affect the chassis and side pods. So as you can see here, this is the 2025 change. And this is what we've made up in terms of our research. So actually really good work on the chassis there. What about the side pods? Side pod's still pretty good, to be fair, in terms of airflow middle and front. Well, airflow front just and drag reduction just. But we've done a good job, I feel, on research. So that should put us in good stead as we start 2025 with our new car. Right, we have our end of season sponsor review. So we've got 3 million from engagement. Nothing from mandatory. Oh, and our team marketability has gone up, so that is pretty good as well. That should help us next year, maybe secure a bit more money from our sponsors. So DHL fastest pit stop, we've been through this, but this is just confirming we finished 10th, 78 points. We get $600,000 for that. And unchanged for Nicole Daniels, who heads up that as our sporting director. Our board confidence is high confidence, so that is very good heading into the new season. Drivers' Championship review then, Daniel Ricciardo 12th with 13 points. Mick Schumacher 17th with 1 point. Team Lotus finishing 7th in the Constructors with 14 points. And our team rating is 2 stars until the end of next year. And this is a review, board review. So target position was 9th, final position is 7th, so we achieved that. Long-term objective is to score points in 50% of races. We've got until 2028 to do that. We actually scored in nearly a quarter of the races. So we nearly, 24 races, we nearly did 6 of the races. That's a pretty good start in season 1. It looked like we weren't going to score points for quite a while, maybe at all in 2024, but a good strong end to the season. I'm pretty confident that we'll actually achieve this long-term objective in 2025. So this is just showing that our team principal rating's gone up quite a bit there. Also, our team rating through the constructors and team rating has increased. The board have assessed your performance as team principal for the entire season and have compiled the below report. High confidence, and we have been given $1.5 million. So this is just confirming the 2025 regulation changes. We did briefly look at these in terms of the technical. There is also a sporting change, which is in terms of the engine limit. So gearbox remain at 4, ERS remain at 2. Engine is reducing from 4 engines a season to 3. So we will have to look for a new engine supplier, or we'll have to review if Renault is the best engine supplier, because what we probably want to go with there is reliability over performance somewhat, because yeah, we went through a number of engines this year and that was with the limit of 4, so we want to avoid that. So I will probably be looking with the supplier that's got the best reliability, but we will review that when we jump into that. As I say, we looked at the minor technical changes, which is here, losing 10% on drag reduction airflow middle for the chassis, and then side pods airflow front, drag reduction airflow middle, reduction of minus 30%. But it looks like for our research we have overcome that deficit, which is very good indeed. Right, what I want to do before we jump into 2025, as we're on the 31st December 2024, is just have a look at the season just gone, look at some teammate battles across the grid, and look at some of the results as well. So let's have a look at the 2024 results, and starting with Max Verstappen, who's pretty dominant. And don't forget, we had that glitch in the game where him and Lewis Hamilton were starting from the pit lane, and I think that was around about Monaco. Definitely happened in Monaco, because that's where he came out of the pits, and on the first lap he smashed the car up and retired, so that's what got a DNF. So I'm pretty sure it happened at Monaco, and I'm sure it was in place until at least Hungary. But even in that spell, it looks like a 3rd place in Canada, 3rd place in Spain, so starting last, still managed to get to 3rd in both of those races. Looks like he won in Austria plus the sprint, and lower down in Silverstone, so still a good spell. Very dominant through the first phase of the season, winning 6 of the first 7 races and both of those sprints. So he's very dominant in that first phase. Then, as we say, that bug hit, and we've had that spell. And then the back end, still dominant, but not as much, to be fair. There's not as many wins there. He still picked up, 5 wins at the back end of the season, 5 out of 10. It looks like he won half the races, but there are a few 2nd place and 3rd places, but not out of the podium at all there, is there? There's actually 11 races from Belgium onwards here. So in those 11 races, the final 11 races of the season, he was never actually out of the podium, was he? So very dominant from Max. Charles, absolutely terrible start to the season, actually. 2nd place in Bahrain, but then did not finish. Then 10 points in Australia, 12 in Japan, China, Miami. So very poor there. Had a good run here whilst Max was obviously having those issues in game. But a very good end to the season for Charles. 1 in Monza, 1 in Singapore, 1 in Mexico, and 1 in Qatar. So he got 4 race wins there out of the last out of the last 9 races, and a good few podiums. So really good work from Charles, and that's what enabled him to jump Carlos Sainz, because Carlos had a good first half of the season, still a pretty good second half, but just not as good as Charles. So that's how he was able to capture second place. Who else do we look at? Perez compared to his teammate Max. This is very realistic of real life, really, isn't it? Very poor from Sergio compared to Max with the quality in that car. He only picked up 1 race win, it looks like, which was in Vegas. And not many podiums, actually. 1 podium in Bahrain, 1 podium in Silverstone in Hungary, 1 in Azerbaijan, the win in Vegas, and Qatar and Abu Dhabi. So was that 6? That was 6 or 7. I've lost count, but not many across the 24 race season compared to his teammates. So poor work from Sergio Perez. Will he be in that Red Bull next year? Who knows? And the McLaren boys, really the only others in that sort of top 3. And Oscar Piastri, very consistent throughout the season, I would say, in sort of this 8 to 12 point mark across the season. A couple of podiums. But apart from that, he was sort of in around that 4th to 6th place range was Oscar. Lando, a little bit better, more in that sort of 3rd to 5th range, I would say, for Lando. Quite a few podiums for Lando there, as we can see. And he beats Oscar Piastri by 50 points there. Mercedes, not great for them. No podiums at all for Mercedes. No podiums at all. So we'll see what their best finish is. It looks like it was 5th there, just looking at that, but we'll see on the head-to-head. Aston Martin, same, no podiums for them either. And then if we look at our drivers, we can see here, look, start of the season, no points whatsoever. Looked like we weren't going to get points at all. And we got to the back end of the season with Danny Rick with 7 races to go. That's where Daniel Ricciardo picked up his first points, but then he went on that lovely point-scoring run from Singapore into Kota, didn't score in Mexico, but then scored in Brazil and Vegas. So 4 out of 5 races in that little stint. Ricciardo got all of his 13 points and then none in the final 2. And Mick Schumacher, lots of DNFs throughout the screen there, and he got his 1 point in Baku. And if we add that to Daniel Ricciardo, as a team, it meant that we actually scored points in 5 out of 6 races there in that little spell back end of the season. So a very good end to the season for ourselves. We can have a look at the teams as well. I guess the main thing here to look at will be Ferrari against Red Bull. Red Bull started a lot better in Bahrain. Ferrari swung in there. So actually the first half of the season, definitely in favour of Red Bull. Definitely in favour of Red Bull till sort of Imola. Monaco was a big swing. That's where Max retired. And then Max had some issues throughout here as well, didn't he? So Ferrari took advantage of that. But to be fair, the rest of the season, even when Max didn't have that in-game issue, they were still pretty dominant. And that's really because of Perez. You think it was 812 points Red Bull got. Max got 507 of them. So 2/3 of Red Bull's points came from Max Verstappen, where I bet the split is a lot more even because we know that championship battle was very close between Ferrari. So 2/3 of the points from Max for Red Bull, but Ferrari basically even keel, near enough 50% of the points by both drivers. So again, it's kind of like what we're seeing in Formula 1 this year. Perez really letting Red Bull down if they want to become Constructors champions, and that's why they missed out only by 50 points. So yeah, that's down to Sergio Perez on that. Then we had some large gaps. So McLaren very much not quite challenging these top 2, actually, when we look at those results of the drivers, because there was no wins, was there, for Lando? They're kind of there or thereabouts. They haven't really got that raw pace to challenge Red Bull and Ferrari, it looks like. They did enough to comfortably be the 3rd best team. So there's they're closer to Red Bull and Ferrari than Mercedes were to McLaren. A massive, nearly 400-point gap to Mercedes. Aston Martin, that gap isn't massive, but a smaller gap there between Mercedes and Aston Martin. RB challenged Aston Martin for a little while. I think if we look at this, actually, this would be interesting. But yeah, for the first half of the season, Aston Martin comfortably ahead. Look at this, not scoring. RB not scoring there. So let's just have a look up to sort of Miami, for example, which were the first 6 races. So RB got 3, 9, 11 points. And Aston Martin had 17, 22, 29, 34 plus the 1, 35, 42, 43. There's 43 points to 11 in that first 6 races. Then it was kind of Aston Martin on top of just about. It was near enough even keel through this period up to about Austria. But this is where RB really started to get some good points in. Not Belgium, but across to here. And they were really closing that gap. As you can see, 4 more points than them here, 3 more points, 8 more points, 5 more points. Lost 2 there. And that's where it kind of dropped off, actually, in these last 4 races. So when we looked at it here in Mexico, they were really closing. I think it got within 12 points or so, something like that. And we thought there's a real chance for RB to actually finish 5th. In the end, he dropped off these last 4 races. Aston Martin came good. So they claimed 5th, RB 6th. And then we look at ourselves, Team Lotus. So we didn't score for a long time, as we said. And it was worrying because even the second race of the season, Williams got a point and Alpine got 2. That meant even a point would have got us up to 9th, which was fine at that stage because that's all we needed. So we thought if we can cling on and just nick a point at the end of the season, that should claim 9th, which is our season objective. But as it went on, when we got here to Monaco, Williams got another 2, which was fine because they were one of the teams already scored. Then Kik Sauber got a sneaky little point, which then meant a point would only bring us up to 10th place. And that got worse when in Monza, Kik got another 2, and Alpine got 1. So they were then on what they finished on here. Stake, Kik Sauber on 3, Alpine on 3, Williams on 4. So to finish 9th effectively, we would have needed maybe 3 points if we got a higher place finish, but at least 4 points. But we did it. We did it because the very next race started that point scoring run. As we saw in Baku, we got 1 point with Mick. Then Danny Rick got 2 in Singapore. Then in Kota, Danny Rick got another point. No points in Mexico, but then the big points came in. 4 in Brazil and 6 in Vegas, giving us 14 points. We claimed 7th in the Constructors' Championship. Now let's look at some head-to-head, shall we? So let's firstly look at Perez against Max Verstappen. I'm looking at dominance here. So the chart is race form. I'm going to more focus on this left-hand side. So Max Verstappen beat Sergio Perez in 20 to 4 races. And qualifying, he's only out-qualified once by Sergio. See the points difference. So, 202 more points for Max Verstappen. 20 podiums to 7 for Perez. 1 race win for Perez, which I think we saw was in Vegas. 12 wins for Max. 17 poles, none for Perez. And 2 DNFs and 1 for Perez. So actually, when Perez beat Max out of those 4 races, 2 of those were because of DNF. So absolute dominance from Max Verstappen over Perez there. And the qualifying difference, nearly a second. Pace difference per race, nearly 4 tenths. Average qualifying position, Max near enough on pole. Perez around 5th place. So that tells the story there. Let's have a look at the next team, which is Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz in Ferrari. And I want to put the points progression on because this will be interesting to look at. So let's just do the head-to-head. So even on the races, 12 all. So very close between these two. Carlos Sainz departs Ferrari, of course, now. Lewis Hamilton hard-coded into the game, so he'll be in that Ferrari with Charles. But very close battle here. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, 12 races each. Qualifying, Carlos Sainz beats him by 1, 13 to 11. 16 within the points there, and that was mainly because Carlos Sainz retired from that last race of the season. If he didn't, Charles would have just pipped him, but it would probably been between 2 to 5 points, something like that difference, so very close. Both got 17 podiums. Carlos Sainz just gets an extra win than Charles. 3 poles from Carlos, 5 for Charles, so Charles qualifying better. This is the big hit for Carlos Sainz. He had an extra DNF, which cost him those points. And this is what I wanted to look at, because we were talking about it in the episodes, that Carlos Sainz was ahead of Charles. At one stage, we thought Carlos was going to challenge Max, because I think he was ahead of Max in the championship for a little while whilst we had that glitch. But look, Charles was ahead after the first race. He never took the lead until... the final race, because Qatar, he's 3 points back. So Charles was in behind Carlos Sainz for the whole season after that first race, and then pips him on the final race. What I just want to look at actually there is if we go... we do want Carlos Sainz against Max Verstappen. Let's just do that points progression. So yeah, it was here very briefly Carlos Sainz took the lead in Hungary. But also after we resolved Max's issues, or the game did, Carlos Sainz had an 8-point lead in the Drivers' Championship after Monza. But then Max just really, took away and dominated to win the Drivers' Championship. Next, we'll look at the McLaren drivers then, and it was very much in favour of Lando Norris for race results. So 17-7 in race format. Bit closer in qualifying, 15-9. What was the average position? Very close. So they were around about qualifying 5th for most of the races. Points-wise, we've already looked at that. 50 extra points for Lando Norris. 7 podiums over 4 for Oscar Piastri. Best race result was 2nd for both of them, and best qualifying 2nd as well. Lando Norris having an extra DNF, so maybe would have had an extra few points. And we can see here, I don't think Oscar Piastri ever, maybe just here. Yeah, by a point at Canada. So sort of halfway point of the season, they were neck and neck, but Lando sort of pulled away, and majorly that last sort of third of the season, Lando extended that gap, but it's pretty close in the end, 50 points between those two. Mercedes next, and George Russell, well, look at that, 16 races to 8. He beat Lewis Hamilton, who departs for Ferrari, so very good work from George Russell there. Lewis Hamilton qualifying better, 13-10. Points, George Russell, what's that, 41 extra points. As we said, as we're going through them individually, the drivers, no podiums for Mercedes, and even their best race result, not even a 4th place, so 5th for George. Lewis Hamilton, 24 races, his best result was 7th place. Best qualifying 4th for George, 5th for Lewis Hamilton, so it shows that they were going backwards most of the time there. Extra DNF for Lewis, so again, he might have grabbed a few more points, but maybe he would have grabbed maybe between 2 and 6 points, and it wouldn't have been enough to close the gap on George. And as you see, Lewis Hamilton started better in Bahrain. George scored no points, but from Saudi onwards, George was always ahead of Lewis. So a very good season for George as he beats Lewis Hamilton in his final season with the team. Aston Martin, well, race-wise, this is closer than you might have thought. Fernando Alonso, 14-10, but pretty close, you'd say, between those two. Qualifying, though, Alonso dominating over 1 lap. Points, 21 points in it, in advantage to Fernando Alonso. No podiums for the Aston Martins. Both best finish was 6th, and best quali was also 6th. 1 DNF between them. So quite closely matched these. Fernando just edging it on the points, and certainly on qualifying, just edging it on the race, more dominant in qualifying. As we can see here, they were sort of pretty close. Again, around Belgium, they were on exact same points, but Fernando from that last half of the season pulled away on his teammate. And this is what really matters, doesn't it? It's the teammate battle of our own team, Team Lotus. So Daniel Ricciardo beating Mick 15-9 in race format. Qualifying, Daniel Ricciardo much better pace in qualifying, 18-6. Points we've covered, 13 points for Daniel Ricciardo, 1 to Mick Schumacher. Average pace difference, only a couple of tenths quicker as Ricciardo, so not massive. Qualifying, it was nearly 3 tenths. No podiums, best race result, 7th for Ricciardo, 10th for Mick Schumacher. That's 7th coming in Vegas for Danny Rick. 10th for Mick Schumacher coming in Baku, and best qualifying 9th for Danny Rick, 10th for Mick Schumacher. But just look at those DNFs. 3 for Daniel Ricciardo, 7 for Mick Schumacher. Now, some of those were crashes, and a couple of those DNFs were enforced by ourselves as well to save race parts, but not great on the DNFs for Mick Schumacher. Points progression, we've really covered this, but as you see, no points really until we got to Baku. Got that first point, which Mick Schumacher took the lead, but then Daniel Ricciardo from Singapore onwards, and dominant gap there. Alpine, so no love lost between these two, and Ocon edges it, 14 race results to 10 against Pierre Gasly, and qualifying even better, 16-8. Ocon only scoring points for Alpine, none for Gasly, so 3 points for Ocon, none for Gasly. No podiums. Best race result, 9th for Ocon, 11th for Gasly. Both best quali was 12th, and extra DNF for Ocon. Although he got the points, it's still pretty close between these two, so that was a pretty even battle apart from qualifying, I would say. Williams will do it against Franco Colapinto. As you can see, it's only going to be 10 races, but very dominant. Unfortunately, Colapinto is ranked very low in the game. I think he's actually ranked 70, so this is no surprise that Alex Albon beat him 9-1 in the 10 races they had. Dominating and qualifying 10-0. Albon getting all of the points, but actually didn't score any points whilst Colapinto was in the car. Albon's points coming in the first half of the season was Sargent in the car. No podiums. Best race result, 12th for Albon, 15th for Colapinto. Best qualifying, 11th, and 14th for Colapinto. Extra DNF for Colapinto. So I think that one especially with Colapinto as he's ranked in the game. That's to be expected. And Haas, who finish dead bottom, unfortunately, no points. But look at this. Absolute pure dominance. This is the most dominance I think we've seen. Red Bull probably in second with Max versus Perez. But Nico Hulkenberg, 23 race results to 1 over K-Mag. Qualifying 20-4. No points, no podiums. Best race result, 11th for Hulkenberg, 14th for K-Mag. 11th in qualifying for Hulkenberg, 12th for K-Mag. K-Mag quite a few DNFs, 5 DNFs to 2 in Hulkenberg. So I think that puts K-Mag as the second most DNFs behind Mick Schumacher there. Now, we're now going to do Correa and Tsunoda. I think this one is going to be dominant as well because Tsunoda always seemed to finish ahead of Correa, didn't he? Yes, indeed. So look at that. So actually, I think this is even more dominant than what we just looked at because the qualifying result. So Yuki was beaten in one race by Correa, and that was because Yuki DNF'd, I would assume. So actually, if Yuki hadn't DNF'd, he may have got a clean sweep. But it's 23-1 in the race. 23-1 in the qualifying. Different pace, average pace in a race. Yuki nearly a second quicker than Correa. Nearly 1.3 quicker in qualifying. So significant pace difference there. 97 points for Yuki. Correa did pick up 3. No podiums. Best race result, 5th for Yuki. 9th for Correa. I think he probably got a few 5th places, did Yuki. Best quali was 5th for Yuki. 10th for Correa. And as we saw there, 2 DNFs for Correa. 1 for Tsunoda. Tsunoda absolutely dominating his teammate Correa in 2024. I wouldn't expect Correa to be retained. Don't know if Yuki will stay in that RB, but it'd be interesting to see him up against a better teammate next year. And the final team is Kick Sauber and Bottas beating Zhou 16-8 in the races. Very good qualifying pace, 20-4. Kick Sauber did get 3 points. They all come by virtue of Valtteri Bottas. No podiums. Best race result, 9th for Bottas, 13th for Zhou. Best quali, 11th for Bottas, 15th for Zhou. 1 DNF each. And there we go. We've looked at all the teammate battles. We've gone through the race results of 2024. It's nice to just look back and see what happens. Let's hope there's going to be a closer championship battle in terms of Max in the Drivers' Championship for 2025. And we're very much hopeful that us in Team Lotus will be able to secure regular points, hopefully from the first race, if not from that early part of the season. So as we saw, we didn't actually gain any points till the back end of the season with about 7-8 races to go. So if we can start earning points even from race 4-5, it's going to be a much better season for us. But as I say, this one's just a shorter video going for a recap, a review of 2024. If you're not already, please do subscribe to the channel. The next episode will be kicking off the 2025 season. We'll be going through the new livery, new race suits. We'll be going through car analysis, doing design work, getting it all set up and prepared, and then also doing the first race of the season, which will be in Australia. So we're using this database editor to replicate the 2025 calendar, which in Real F1, we are heading back to Australia to kick off the season. So that will be the same in our series. So as I say, please do subscribe to keep notified of that next episode. If you haven't already, do like the video, get involved in the comments, let me know your thoughts on these teammate battles, and we'll be back very soon to continue our Team Lotus series and kick off the 2025 season.